Hey guys, welcome back, and here's hoping everyone has a better 2021 than 2020. So my lovely wife and we decided to go on a little adventure, and even though we're on a very tight time schedule, I was hoping that I would be able to share some of it with you guys. I really wish we could have stopped to see some of the sights along the way, but the best that I could do was some dash captures as we drove. We're leaving here in northern Michigan. We're crossing the UP and half the country, and we're heading to northwest Montana to drop off a powder coat oven, and then we're driving southeast to Billings to pick up a vehicle on the way back. The day we were leaving, the soonest that we could get out was noon. We have the oven loaded on an 18-foot aluminum car hauler, and we're towing it with a 2008 Chevy Trailblazer. Once we get out of town, we drive along Lake Huron for a ways, heading north to Mackinac City and a bridge to the UP. At this point, there's a snowstorm coming, and we're going to do all we can to try to stay ahead of it, but it's supposed to affect all of northern lower Michigan and the UP, which is, the UP is about an 8-hour drive just across it. As we head north, you can tell we're cutting it close as we do hit some patches of snow here and there. Fortunately, the bulk of the storm is still a little ways out, so we're crossing our fingers that we stay ahead of it. After about a 2-hour drive, we make it to Mackinac City where we can stop and we can grab some coffee to go.
Yeah, Mackinac City. At least the weather's not as bad as we thought. Say hi, honey.
Hi.
There's my wife. Check her out on OnlyFans where she torture tests butt plugs and nipple clamps.
Hey! No.
And then we get on the highway and we make our way across the bridge. The Mackinac Bridge is the only route to the Upper Peninsula from Lower Michigan. The bridge was opened in 1957, and the total length is, I believe, about 5 miles. My wife really hates crossing it, but honestly, I don't think it's all that bad. They keep it clear, they close it when the wind gets too bad, and there are all sorts of horror stories of cars being blown off, but I think that the whole time the bridge has been open, only 2 cars have ever gone over, and one of those was intentional. So once you get across the bridge, you're in St. Ignace, Michigan, and we're getting on US Route 2 to start heading west. The first part of this route takes you alongside Lake Michigan on the left, and eventually you get away from the lake and you head into wilderness. Further west and north you go, you'll eventually be seeing some mountains. Google Maps eventually took us off Route 2, so we ended up going through Marquette, which is a very pretty little town to drive through. Eventually the storm did catch up to us, but at that point we were at the edge of the area supposed to be affected, and after a couple hours we drove out of it and into Ironwood, Michigan, which is the last town in the UP before crossing into Wisconsin. The northernmost part of Wisconsin is about an hour to drive across. There's a couple towns on either end where you can stop for coffee and gas. And it had to happen sooner or later, but we got a little lost crossing from Wisconsin into Minnesota.
Oh, we got another train here. And a train here stopped at the crossing. Hey, babe, where are we at?
I don't know.
Where are we?
I don't know.
Are we in Duluth?
I think so.
Are we off the highway?
Yep.
Why are we off the highway?
Because I fucked up.
So now that we're back on track, we can cross this bridge from Superior, Wisconsin into Duluth, Minnesota, and we can start our trek across Minnesota. Unfortunately, Google Maps took us on back roads through the middle of nowhere, so there was really nothing to see and nothing was open. We really never even saw another car until about a half hour from the border of North Dakota. And then we finally crossed into North Dakota, and at this point it was time to get a little rest. We drove a little past Fargo and we found a rest area to call home for the next 2 or 3 hours.
Alright, here's a map of North Dakota. Here's Fargo. We're right here. We're stopping here for the night. Fucking fan just kicked on. But yeah, we're stopping here for the night. It's about 1:30 in the morning here. It's like 2:30 in the morning my time. You know, I think we're still in Central Time. That's where we're at now. We're in North Dakota. What do you think? You glad to be in North Dakota?
Yes.
Out of Minnesota?
Yes.
Fuck Minnesota, right?
Oh God, fuck that.
After waking up, we get back on the road and we had to pull over to check this out. The sunrise was just absolutely amazing. And since there was so much scenery that was the same, I ended up shooting a time lapse of what's probably a good 2 or 3 hours, and I'm going to include that here because why not? I've never been to North Dakota, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. I thought the entire state would be flat, snow-covered, and windy. The first half seemed to be, and when we stopped and talked to a couple people, they said there's normally a lot more snow, but they were having a pretty mild winter so far this year, which worked out good for us. But the wind, while not as strong as I thought, it was constant. It was like standing in front of a fan. When we woke up, it was 7 degrees Fahrenheit, but it felt like 15 below does here in Michigan. The cold literally just felt completely different. But the view pretty much stayed the same until just after Bismarck. And then all of a sudden you start increasing in elevation, and little mounds start appearing, and then they turn into bigger mounds and bigger mounds. And we even passed this really wild looking canyon. There's so much change in the landscape that I never expected to see. And before crossing into Montana, you find what must be what they refer to as the high plains. Your elevation's pretty high, and it opens up into just plains for miles and miles. And finally we make it to Montana. For quite a while in Montana, there was really nothing to see. Endless prairie, I guess you would call it. It was all ranches on either side of the road for as long as you could see, for hundreds of miles. Eventually, you will have to cross over mountains, and sometimes it does snow on those mountains, so that's something that you need to be prepared for. We only encountered one pass where it was snowing near Glacier National Park, and it was like 5,280 feet, but the road seemed decent enough to travel on as long as you use some common sense. We made it over with no problem, and eventually made it to our destination to unload the trailer and get a few hours sleep. Heading out early the next morning on the way south to Billings, we got to see some of the views we had missed the night before. Montana is a very beautiful state. Everywhere you look is like some sort of a postcard view. Another popular feature in Montana seems to be roundabouts. There are quite a few of those that we had to go through. And here are a few more clips of the scenery we saw as we were heading southeast through the state.
We got an empty trailer. We've driven about 8 hours. Now with an empty trailer and about 45 minutes away from loading something else on it. Hey honey, what do you think of Montana?
I don't mind it. I like it.
It's beautiful, ain't it?
And finally, after an 8-hour drive, we made it to Billings and we were able to pick up our prize. And this made it well worth the trip. We'll take a look at this a little closer in another video. So back across North Dakota, and we decided to head north from Fargo to Grand Forks and cut across the northern part of Minnesota on Route 2. This whole area looks like it's primarily a sugar producing area, with sugar beet fields and sugar refineries everywhere. And at some point, the sun went down again, and we just drove all through the night, and we finally made it home the next morning. It was a long trip with hardly any sleep, so it was a great feeling just to be able to be back home and crawl into your own bed and get some much needed sleep. And I'm just going to leave it at this. If you're in the US and you ever get a chance to see the country, I highly recommend you get out and do it. There's so many places to see, and photos or videos will never do it justice. The views alone make any trip worthwhile, and if you can take the time to get out, look around, and just experience it, by all means do it. So while I realize this wasn't a very professional video, hopefully you guys found it interesting. Hope all you guys have a really good new year, and we will see you on the next one.